In the far corner of the continent of Philobelia lies humanity's last settlement, protected by a barrier from monsters and beast tribes running rampant throughout the land. Despite the danger beyond the walls, the call to adventure awaits. Treasures to find, mysteries to solve, and new places to discover. The possibilities are endless. Embark on a journey across time to forge friendships, ignite the flames of hope, and save the world from peril. Welcome to the Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales. Hot take, I am not a fan of the Zelda games. I tried many times to get into them, but I just can't seem to follow through. So it's probably just not my cup of tea. But this spin on the genre, on the other hand, got me hooked pretty much immediately. The added JRPG gameplay mechanics and storytelling were the missing ingredients in the recipe to reel me in. Square Enix and Team Asano took a risk to expand to new territory while maintaining the core elements of what makes their game special, and I very much believe it is worth it. I sincerely believe The Adventures of Elliot is worthy of praise and support. And with that said, let me tell you why that is. Unlike your standard JRPGs, The Adventures of Elliot the Millennium Tales can be completed within 20 to 40 hours, depending on how thorough you play the game. And I mean this in the best possible way. Especially as I get older and don't have the same luxury of time as I used to, I don't necessarily want every JRPG requiring hundreds of hours to complete. Sometimes, a linear, well designed, and polished experience can do wonders rather than artificially padding out the game length with collectibles and achievements. And The Adventures of Elliot absolutely nails this. It does not disrespect your time, and you can complete all the content available only if you really want to, which I personally did given its robust level design and pacing. Competition in gaming is at an all time high and continues to rise even higher. So now more than ever, I believe games need to be smaller, more meticulously curated at friendlier price point, which I believe the game falls under. The Adventures of Elliot is Square's first foray into action RPGs using the HD 2D engine. It uses the visual appeal of the new engine while having intense, fast paced action that I had a hard time putting down. I'll start with exploration. Traversing the world never felt like a chore. In fact, that couldn't be further from the truth. Every quality of life introduced over the past decade has been implemented in this game, and more importantly, implemented correctly. The problem I usually have with exploration in modern games is that bigger is always better. That is the mentality of flagship studios and publishers as an excuse to increase game time. While that can be true in some cases, nowadays when I see gameplay mechanics, I ask, is it fun? Does it add value to the game? Or does it just make it seem like it is adding value? Most of the time, sadly, especially for open world games, the answer is the latter. But fortunately for The Adventures of Elliot, it is a breath of fresh air. The overall size of the game world in The Adventures of Elliot is just right. Not too small or narrowed down that offers little for exploration, but also not too large that can make you feel overwhelmed. The well structured level design is even more evident inside dungeons, caves, and ruins where not once did I feel lost or frustrated on where to go next. To be clear, I do not mean that the game holds your hand so much that no exploration is required. What I am saying is that exploring interiors is very fun to do because they are not designed to feel tedious and bloated. Let me visualize this further. Have you ever played a game where, in the middle of the level, you encounter three or more paths and you can't decide which one to choose? If you're a completionist, the ideal scenario is that you hit a dead end with all of them except for one and manage to loot all the treasure. But what actually happens is that you take maybe one or two of these paths and you end up going the right way. And the story ends up continuing. Or worse, a surprise boss fight. Sounds familiar? If you're an avid JRPG player, you should have encountered that. But I'm glad to say that you will never do so in The Adventures of Elliot. Navigation in the user interface is top notch. You have a minimap that starts off with a fog of war to encourage you to explore every nook and cranny for valuable items and loot. This hits two birds in one stone by first having you venture into the unknown without excessively holding your hand. Second, as you reveal more of the map and the fog dissipates, this will tell you that you have already explored an area, mitigating the frustration of unnecessary repetitive exploration. Levels are also designed in a way that you will know if a boss fight is imminent. So if you want to further explore the rest of the level first before a major battle, you can do so without accidentally stumbling upon it. And to further add to that, the minimap UI will also indicate how many treasure chests you still need to find in a particular area or dungeon to not leave you wondering if you missed any. As you progress in the game, you'll have access to even more of these indicators of collectibles that you can retrieve in a particular area. And the best part is, these indicators never feel excessive or overfilling the world map that makes it feel like a chore or doing work rather than playing a game. And believe me when I say that it is designed in such a way that you would want to collect all of them. Pacing of character progression in Adventures of Elliot is also well done. Never will you feel that any treasure or loot you will find is obsolete or worthless. Especially early to mid game, you will stumble upon chests that contain tool, the game's currency, newer upgraded equipment, accessories, or life shards that increase Elliot's HP. For each chest or loot that you find, or every quest you complete, there will always be that dopamine hit that you made an achievement or moved one meaningful step forward in the game. So I think I hammered it hard that The Adventures of Elliot has very fun and fulfilling exploration. But another gripe I have for these types of games is the sometimes complex puzzle solving. And again, I'm glad to say that this is not an issue in the game. Though, admittedly, I don't consider myself to be the brightest person in the world. But the puzzles never deterred me from progressing. The Adventures of Elliot's platforming mechanics and puzzle layouts, I believe, hit the sweet spot of not being overly complicated, but at the same time maximize the gameplay features. As you probably already know, Elliot throughout his journey is accompanied by a fairy companion named Faye, who has multiple unlockable abilities that support Elliot in platforming, puzzle solving, and combat. You will definitely be using these abilities in many instances in creative and intriguing ways, most especially in the shrines where you will have to pass a test to be rewarded with either an upgrade for Elliot or Faye. There's even a mini game feature in the menu where you can practice using all of Faye's abilities as you unlock them. They even provide you with the game soundtracks as rewards for completing them. Whether it is navigating through dark paths, sprinting through unstable terrain, or warping past obstacles blocking your path, the puzzle solving is never too difficult to figure out, but remains very fulfilling when you solve them. And to add variety to the level design, as you probably already know, the Adventures of Elliot involves traveling across time, where you will traverse to four different ages. You begin in the present, which is the age of safekeeping, and progressively move further into the past, namely the age of reconstruction, the age of magic, and the age of budding. You might be wondering why I am bringing this up now. But the point I am making is that as you travel across these four ages, the overall game world of Philobelia remains fundamentally the same, but the terrain and design has some significant changes for each age. For example, if you encounter a cave in the age of safekeeping that seemingly does not offer anything of value or immediately leads to a dead end, you might think at first, wow, this is lazy level design, but that is definitely not the case. What that means is you need to travel to a different age and go to that same cave and see if it is expanded and offers valuable treasure. The underlying point is that the variety in level design is cleverly embedded to the time traveling plot of the game that is very much reminiscent to Chrono Trigger. For veterans in the genre, you might make the argument that the game does too much handholding or too simplistic, but personally, I see this game as a gateway to get people to play the more complex games in the genre. The way I see it is, for example, if you want to convince people to learn how to swim, you put them in the shallow water first to learn the fundamentals, rather than pushing them in the deep pool without any prior knowledge or experience. So, with all that said, exploration, very fun and engaging, that is well structured and well paced with clever variation. Now let's talk about the combat. While I wouldn't call it groundbreaking by any means, it is still solid in its own right. Combat in The Adventures of Elliot is fast, responsive, and snappy. Regular groups of enemies usually go down within a minute or two, especially as Elliot and Faye get stronger and unlock more weapons and abilities. Boss fights usually last for around several minutes each, requiring different strategies to take down, such as perfect parrying, precise evading, and utilization of Faye's abilities. Some even provide platforming elements during later phases of the fight, while others will be easier through the use of particular weapons. Elliot has a good amount of weapons in his arsenal. He has the sword, spear, bow, boomerang, hammer, chain and sickle, and bombs. Each of these weapons are distinct and play very differently from one another. What I can say is that I had a tremendous amount of fun learning and mastering each weapon type, and I highly encourage you to swap out and use all of them to add variety to the combat. While this is not a Souls-like game by any stretch of the imagination, I still had a great time fighting the many enemies and bosses. I never felt the combat overstayed its welcome, and what made it even more engaging to play is the enhancement of your weapons through magicites. The Adventures of Elliot does not have the traditional leveling system of most JRPGs. Instead, it is tied to first the collection of life shards and better equipment to increase Elliot's health and damage, which we already touched on earlier. And the second method to enhance Elliot's capabilities is the use of what is called magicites. Magicites are crystals that you equip to your weapons to provide them buffs and attributes tailored to your playstyle. Whether it is to imbue your weapons with elemental damage, increased crit damage, or crit rate, to more unique attributes like slower explosion times for your bombs or longer times in the air for your boomerang, you have full control on how to customize your weapons. You can acquire magicites by finding them in chests and providing magicite fragments to a merchant in town. The more magicite fragments you provide, the increased likelihood that you will receive more potent magicites. You can also increase the amount of magicite each weapon can carry by upgrading your magicite box capacity with the merchant, allowing you to stack powerful attributes and abilities to your weapons as you progress in the game. It is worth noting that magicite capacity is separate for each weapon and not pooled together. So if you have filled the magicite capacity of your sword, that does not mean you can no longer fill any magicites in your spear or in your other weapons. And that about wraps up the gameplay. Explore the world, accept quests, take on foes, solve puzzles, and collect rewards and loot. It has a very strong game loop that will hold you until the end. Now with the gameplay complete, how does the story hold up? Like I said in the beginning of this video, the narrative is engaging. While I won't claim the Adventures of Elliot has the most groundbreaking tale for JRPGs, I will also not say that it is lacking. The story is set in the continent of Philobelia, where monsters have dominated most of the land, and the remaining human population reside in the Kingdom of Uther. The kingdom is protected by a magical barrier maintained by Princess Huria. For a time, all is right in the world until a time gate that leads to the past is discovered. Without diving into spoilers, events occur following this discovery that leaves the fate of the world hanging in the balance, and guess who is entrusted with the task of saving it? I have seen others say that the plot is far too bright, whimsical, or too much of a stereotypical fairy tale. I beg to differ. While it is definitely far from the dark themes that games such as Octopath Traveler tell, it still holds up very well. At a time where I believe the world is now more chaotic, I believe we already have a saturation of not everything is black and white, or morally ambiguous stories and cast of characters. To me personally, I think now more than ever, we need stories that bring out the best qualities in people. And a great way of doing that is writing characters that have naturally good intentions, which the Adventures of Elliot definitely succeeds in flying colors. The narrative deals with heavy themes such as love, family, friendship, courage, selflessness, mutual understanding, unity, sacrifice, and above all else, hope, and the continuous belief that as long as there is hope, a brighter future is always possible. Look, I understand how stereotypical this is, and I won't deny that. Especially Elliot is written in such a way that he embodies all the good characteristics of humanity. Elliot always just wants to help other people and bring out the good in them and becomes a beacon of inspiration. While you can argue that it is unrealistic, especially compared to real life, I really think that there's nothing wrong to aspire to be that character. We need more stories that uphold traditional moral values that hopefully one day will shape the world in a positive way. So with that said, this is why I think the game tells a remarkable story that tugged my heartstrings multiple times, especially the latter part of the main story. Despite its stereotypes, I admit that the biggest twists in the plot caught me by surprise, or I only managed to figure it out right before it was about to be revealed. In other words, don't dismiss the story simply because it seems stereotypical. Trust me, there will be jaw-dropping moments. It is also heartwarming how Elliot interacts with the supporting cast with his welcoming demeanor and earnest desire to help others. In the context of depth, the side stories and story arcs of the supporting cast are also strong and relatable. Each of their stories are well written with believable struggles and lessons. Later on, you will even experience how interwoven the four ages are, or to put it simply, the story of how each age came about and how it led to the next one. At the end of the day, immerse and enjoy the tale that this game tells. There is nothing wrong with classic stories, and I will die on that hill. Alright, we have the gameplay and story nailed down. Next up, what about the visuals? I mean, what else can I say but they are gorgeous. As I always preach, I prefer stylized art style over photorealistic visuals, and another form of that is the HD 2D graphics pioneered by Square Enix and Team Asano. The characters look great, varied, and vibrant. The particle effects and animations look amazing and never feel dull. The environments and level design are vivid and also varied, from lush forests with dense flora and fauna, dry deserts, snowy mountains and glaciers, molten lava and volcanoes, dark caverns, ancient ruins, and many more. You will find a diverse and colorful assortment of locations throughout the game world, and the settlement designs are even on point with the time period, where the Age of Magic has a very sophisticated technological design, while the Age of Reconstruction has a barren and desolate appearance in the aftermath of what came before. Suffice to say, the Adventures of Elliot is eye candy from beginning until the end. As for performance, there's really nothing else to say other than it performs great, as it is not exactly the most graphically intensive game. Whichever platform you decide to play the game on, I highly doubt performance will be a major issue in your experience. With the gameplay, story, and visuals complete, how fares the audio design? And as expected from the team that brought us the game, it is excellent. It is unsurprising that the Adventures of Elliot has great audio, Not once did I feel the voice acting was lackluster, nor did I find the excellent composition of the orchestral soundtrack unfit or inappropriate. Sound effects are spot on and feel very empowering, especially when dealing attacks on enemies. Given Square Enix and Team Asano's long experience in the industry, there really isn't much for me to say. As long as they put in the work, you're pretty much guaranteed to have an amazing sound experience given their track record. Let me show you for a brief moment.
It's no different from usual. More importantly,
We know. We'll work together.
And we won't fight. We'll say please and thank you, too.
And we'll listen to everything Miss Leica says.
And that concludes my experience with the Adventures of Elliot. The exploration is well paced and designed that keeps you wanting to find everything it has to offer. The level design and puzzles are neither too small nor too big that encourages you to keep playing. Combat is fast paced, intuitive, and slick, giving you a wide variety of weapons, abilities, and customization. The story, while can be stereotypical, can help bring out the best traits of humanity while having its own fair share of depth, twists, and turns. The HD 2D graphics are vivid, and performance is great from beginning until the end. The voice acting, sound effects, and soundtrack are all well performed and composed. The Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales, is an excellent spin to an old genre with unique new features and mechanics that can help bring in new players. I, for one, am looking forward to more games like this by Square Enix and Team Asano. And as of now, this is my second HD 2D game. And so far, they have yet to miss. And that concludes this video. Thank you for watching and sticking until the end. Do consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, or check out my other videos to see if I've earned your subscription. Happy jrpg gaming, and I hope to see you next time.
Let me bestow unto you these words to guide you home to your family. Hope is always there.
hope is always there.